Hey everyone, and welcome back to Country Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. As always, please be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe to us wherever you are listening. You can leave us a review, a rating, tell your friends, your family, your neighbors to come on over and have a listen. That support is huge. Today, we are joined by John King. Now, he released his debut album earlier this year, Always Gonna Be, but it is far from the first music he has ever released. He arrived in Nashville in about 2011 and has been releasing music and touring extensively ever since there, building a career in country music. He has had a #1 as a songwriter. He has played the Opry. He has his debut album, and everything has been growing year over year since arriving in Nashville. Now, we had a chance to talk to him about some of the influential people that have guided his journey, some of the events that have led to this moment, including his first band called Vinyl, and everything in between. So please enjoy our conversation with John King. You had some tours that you did this year finally, and I know that you brought your family on the road with you for a bit of it anyways. And I was wondering if that just worked out or if that was something you made happen because it was a little more difficult to head out on the road this time around.
Yeah, man. No, I mean, even before I love taking my family out with me. It just turns it, it's like turning a work trip into a little bit of a family vacation. And we get some downtime, and this year we had a big run out west, man. It was like, Montana and Wyoming and Colorado, and it's these beautiful parts of the country that, my wife had never seen and my daughter had never seen. I was like, you know what? Like, we've been cooped up for a year and a half, let's make the best of it and turn it into a vacation. So yeah, man, we pulled the whole caravan. We had like our camper with us and we had our bus with us and all our gear. So it was really fun, man. And, my brother plays drums for me. So, him getting to hang out with my daughter and be Uncle Andrew for a little bit instead of just drummer, like it was cool, man. It gave the whole tour a different feel. It gave it like this, like family vacation vibe. And it was really cool, man. It was like memories, big memories for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And with the trailer, you did a lot of that in 2020, a lot of camping. And you had said that you got your first truck since high school, I believe, in 2020. Yeah. Then you hitched the trailer up to it. And I was going to ask, in those moments when you're finally getting that truck, when you're finally getting that camper, you have those professional moments that make you think, oh man, look at where I am. But, when you have those bigger moments personally, do you stop and think about, wow, look at where I am. I'm finally getting this truck.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, shoot, I'm just like a simple country boy from Georgia, man. So coming up working like construction jobs and manual labor, like anytime, that I can get like a nice something shiny and new for my family, like we're so grateful for. It's the little victories, right? Like it's not just like the #1 songs. It's not just the, the big tours and the accolades. It's things like that. It's like the memories that are made, and like, yeah, a new truck, like for a good old boy like me is like, a really awesome thing to like check off the bucket list. And it's been cool, man. Like, obviously touring all these years, being on the road all these years, having some time with the family to really kind of like refocus and reprioritize has been huge for me. And it's not only affected me personally, but also creatively. Like it's really inspired, like this new music, this whole new record has really been inspired like from this past year, like just really having all this extra time with my family. So it's definitely been a really rewarding time for me to get that extra family time.
Your family was big on camping when you were young. And so when you started heading out with your family last year, was there memories that came flooding back that you sort of forgot about that were kind of triggered by getting back out there and doing more camping?
Oh yeah, man. It's nostalgia. Like, right. Like my dad raised us in the outdoors and camping and, on the lake and fishing. And so it's like, that triggers all those memories of my childhood and some of my favorite moments. And it's cool to think that like you're passing that down to your kid, into the next generation. And I think there's never been a time more important than now to get our kids outside and like get out there and like and introduce them to wildlife and to the outdoors, because as you know, it's like such a tech centric world, and that's a great thing. I mean, the past year it's kept us all connected, but it can also
Yeah.
kind of pull you into this tunnel, to where you're just in front of a screen all the time. And I'm guilty of it, even more than anybody else. But yeah, I mean, it's a priority in our family to really keep our kids, connected with the outdoors, and it's just a great place, man. Like I can think of most of the great memories in my life have happened, in a hunting stand or fishing or, camping and so I really want my daughter to have those same experiences.
That's awesome. And around the campfire when you were young, were your parents musical? Were they the campfire sing-along type of folk?
Man, not really. No, my parents were. It's so funny. I don't even know how I got into this career because no one in my family, really has a whole lot of musical ability. I mean, my mom played some piano in the church choir, and she was probably the closest thing to a musician that I knew until I was in middle school, and on up into high school. But she taught me a few chords, and my parents were more just music fans and music lovers. And that really rubbed off on me more than anything. I was a student of music before I ever knew how to do anything. I got my first guitar when I was 10 or 11 because my mom knew that I had such a passion for these songs. And I was like, an anthologist, I could tell you what song was on what record by what band. And I just had this Rolodex in my brain of bands and artists. And so I was like, man, around 10 or 11, I was like, I think I'm going to try to learn to play something. It'd be cool to create my own songs, to be able to take these songs and these chords and these patterns and say what I want to say. And so I really started writing songs around 12 or 13, and it was off to the races from there, man. I just fell in love with the creative freedom to be able to make my own music,
Right. And I saw a photo on your Instagram. I think your brother probably would have been about 3 or 4. And you mentioned he plays drums in your band, and he was about 3 or 4. And it looked like he got a little mini drum set for Christmas. And so was he more focused on music at a young age and wanting to learn instruments and wanting to bang around on the drums than maybe you were?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was funny. He got his little Mickey Mouse set of drums, and I had a little just kind of cheap kid's guitar, and we would have these jam sessions in our living room. None of us knew what we were doing. And as we got older, I wanted to play drums because I thought, man, he makes that look like so much fun. So I got a drum set, and he got a guitar.
Okay.
And then we were at that time I was 10 or 11, and he was 6 or 7, and I'll be dang, he got so good at the drums that I was like, man, I'm just going to have to give up. I can't be a drum. He's going to be the drummer. I got to find something else. So then I started playing guitar and writing songs, and we kind of picked our paths that way. But I originally thought being a drummer sounded like a lot of fun because you could bang on stuff really loud, but
Yeah.
he was better than me. So I had to surrender that.
That's awesome. And you talk about not many people in your family being musical, but I wanted to ask about the influence of your grandfather, Sam, better known as Pop. I wanted to learn the influence that he's had on you for just becoming the person that you are. Maybe not the musician, but just the person.
Oh man, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. I have been so blessed to have amazing role models, an amazing family, just a support system my whole life, and I know how rare that can be. So I try not to ever take that for granted. But yeah, my grandpa, man, he's a hardworking man. He, talking about a guy who worked 4 jobs at one period, would sleep 2 or 3 hours a night and get up before the sun came up and feed the cows and do his farm work. Then he'd go off and work a 9 to 5 job. And then he'd come back and work a night job and would take shifts on the weekend. I mean, he really instilled that work ethic in me. And I think he's the one who really motivated me that if you're going to chase a dream, you better be ready to put everything you have in it. You're not going to be on the clock. It's nonstop. And that really rang true to me. And around high school, when I started thinking about careers, started thinking about college, I knew what I wanted to do. And he was the one that really kind of set me down and was like, I don't think you understand what you're signing up for. It's not going to be all fun, and he's so true. It was so true, man. I mean, it's been a lot of late nights. It's been a lot of no sleep, driving from town to town, working nonstop, and a lot of things people, don't even really understand that we do, that kind of go on behind the scenes. But it's been worth it, man, to be able to do something you love. And so, yeah, Pop really put that in me and was a big source of my work ethic, I think.
And in high school, I wanted to ask about your first band. Now, was it Vinyl? Was that the name of it?
Yeah. Oh man, you've been digging in deep on the research, dude. This is maybe the first interview I've ever had where vinyl has come up. You're talking about some memories right there, man.
Tell me about it. What type of memories come back for you when thinking about that time of your life?
Oh man, the best. I mean, really fun. It was just me and a couple buddies, that started a little garage band, and it was kind of like I don't know, it was like Rock Band 101 because we were trying to figure out number one how to play our instruments because we weren't very good at them yet. We had just kind of started. We were writing our own songs, and then we started building a little fan base, and we're touring around Georgia, and so it was really cool. Like it was a real test, for me, and kind of like a little trial run of how things would go later on in a bigger scale. But the songs, listening back, were pretty cool. I mean, it was like Southern rock and country. I mean, it was kind of like we didn't know it was country, but I say that band is kind of what pushed me into really coming to Nashville and being a country artist because at that time, like Eric Church had just come along, Jason Aldean, and like these guys were opening up the lanes a little bit to where you didn't have to just be like straight like honky tonk 90s country, which I love that stuff. But, I had a lot more like rock influence in my stuff. And vinyl was kind of like an introductory into that. And it really gave me confidence too, like as a songwriter, because when you start selling out little 50-person, 100-person club, 200-person club, it's like, okay, like I think people kind of like what we're doing. And that's what made me really want to chase it down and go to college and really try to like come out of college, go to Nashville and do it for real.
And you had a keytar in that band. So you were able to work in keytar music to your music then. So is there ever a chance of working in a keytar to any of your music moving forward?
Oh man, the keytar's got to come back one day. Now that you've mentioned it, I'd forgotten that, we did used to break out. I mean, our keyboard player, it's so funny, John Burke, the keyboard player that we had went on to be a Grammy-nominated composer. I mean, he's an amazing musician. Yeah, he's amazing. But that was more for stage show than anything. But it worked. It always got the crowd going.
That is awesome. And you talk about the hard work that pop instilled within you. And I wanted to talk about sort of the first dream that I think you might have had that you worked towards, and that was owning a boat. You had the blue boat that you bought. And I read that basically you worked any job you could to save up the money to buy that boat. And so I wanted to ask you just that experience, that hard work, and then having that boat for those years. I believe you sold it in 2015. What influence does that have on you now and your songwriting? Just those types of experiences as you're growing up.
Oh man, dude, that was the best $1,200 I ever spent in my life. And I mean, I grinded for summers to save up that $1,200. And like my parents were kind of encouraging me to save it, and like, you don't need a boat, and like, but I just went for it, man. I was like, I don't splurge often. I'm not the kind of person to really like buy, like lavish things, but that was like one thing I had to have. I just knew I had to have it. And I found this old 73 Sportmaster, like the kind of like an ugly looking boat, like very old school, but like also kind of cool. And me and my friends, man, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time in high school, like we had some of the best times on that thing, just riding around the lake and spending summers down in Georgia. So yeah, I wouldn't trade those memories for 12 million bucks, much less 1,200. And when I sold it, man, it was a hard day. I mean, there were so many, how it is, you get attached to things like that. I always think about like that Alan Jackson song Drive, like just an old plywood boat, like that's so true. And things like that carry into my songwriting, into my creativity, like to this day. Because without those memories, man, like what else is that those are the best things to write about, because people identify with that.
And you talked about your wife, meeting her in high school. You've known her ever since then. What were you guys, 15 or so when you met?
Yeah, 15.
And so what has that experience been like in having her here for the entire journey and not necessarily bringing someone into a relationship when you're already this hardworking musician and maybe they don't realize what it takes? She knows exactly what this journey has been. So how important has that been for you and that support? She's my rock, man. I mean, I just don't know where I would be. It's this career is, as is a very
man, it's risky. You work nonstop. You have to have that support system. And for me to have a wife who's been by my side since, we knew we were going to do this in high school. Like, this is what I wanted to do. And she's never once questioned me. She stood by me and done nothing but like motivate me and lift me up. So it's been amazing to have that. I don't think I would be here without that. I think I would have given up long ago.
And you wrote together, like when you first met, right? Because didn't you record a song last year in quarantine that you and her had written together when you were like 15?
Well, yeah. Well, she, she wouldn't, consider herself a writer. She wouldn't say that, but she really is. I mean, she inspires me, with little lines here and there or ideas or concepts. Like, she really does have a great radar for like what makes a great song and what makes a bad song. And that's why she's always the first one I play songs for, because I know I'm going to get like an honest response, and I can always trust her, like, to tell me what she likes, what she doesn't. And what's cool is, like, she doesn't have a musical background. So to her, like, she's listening to it purely from a listener's standpoint, which is nice. It's kind of a different perspective. And what I think you would get, when you're just listening to a song in your car, like just somebody in the middle of Iowa or wherever who just hears your song for the first time, like, that's what you want to hear as an artist. Like, what is that perspective? So she's great, man. She's so great to lean on creatively. And I'm just really blessed to have her.
That's awesome. And now when you went to university, you majored in music. And is that when the dream of being a country artist really began? Like, that's when you really started grinding and playing clubs and playing honky tonks and networking and doing what you could to start that career, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, having that, going to school at Georgia, really one of the main reasons I went there is because Athens had such a thriving music scene, and not necessarily in country, but, across all genres. I mean, so many great bands like REM, like B-52s had come out of there, in kind of that 90s alt rock phase. And then as like it was time for me to go to school, like you had like Luke Bryan coming through there playing the Georgia Theater and Zach Brown Band and Brantley Gilbert. So there was kind of like this resurgence of like Georgia country artists coming through Athens. And I was like, man, this feels like a good town to be. I mean, I can go obviously get a great education there, but there was a lot of clubs and a lot of venues that we could get in there and like build a name for ourselves. And so, yeah, I mean, I'd always promised my mom I'd go to college, but deep down, like, I wanted to kind of go straight to Nashville. But I was like, if I got to go, I want to go somewhere where I can kind of put my, my skills to the test. And that was a great, man, I don't think I was ready for Nashville. And I think Athens really got me ready through the education. I mean, having like a marketing degree and then the music business degree, like those two things were so useful and still are every day. And then being able to get out, after we'd play classes, we'd go rehearse in an old studio that the Allman Brothers had recorded in. We had like a mentor down there named Jim Hawkins, and our music business professors, Dave and Tom, were like so supportive that they really kind of got behind us and like were like, hey, we'll set you up with a rehearsal space. Like, you guys like get in there and rehearse and write songs and record music. And we ended up like having a really good little set that we'd play, and we'd go tour around at these clubs in Athens, and we'd go to Charlotte and Greenville and wherever. And like, we built a fan base, and it was great, man. Like, that really, college was the launching point for me for sure.
And pretty quick after moving to Nashville, you signed with Black River Publishing. Now, how important was that moment in sort of giving you confidence that this was going to work, and not having to go and sort of work and not know what the future would hold, but sort of having that one pillar of stability with the publishing group moving forward?
Oh man, yeah, it was a huge confidence boost because, I'd always heard like Nashville, it's crazy competitive. And when I got here, like, I started playing rider rounds and going out and playing shows, and I was like, man, there is so much talent here. Like, I don't know if I'm good enough to be here. And it was a huge confidence boost. And it like kind of threw me right into the fire. Like, I immediately had to kind of start, writing with, these hit songwriters and doing shows with these artists who were on the radio. And I was like, gosh, like, I've got to really step up my game and figure out what I want to say as an artist and how I want to say it quickly. And it was nice, man. Like, I feel like those first 2 or 3 years being here in Nashville, like, definitely, I felt like I improved a lot as a songwriter and kind of found my voice as an artist. And it was, it was really cool, man. But, it was kind of like, man, you get here and you sign a record deal like within the first year. Like, this is going to be easy, man. Like, we can do this. Let's go to radio. Let's get that number one. Yeah, but what I didn't know, like in hindsight, it's like that's really just when the work started. Like that was the beginning, and it's still a grind. But man, it's been fun.
And we see the plaque behind you there, the number one. You got your number one with Randy Houser, and I went when he went to number one. That was April 2015. Now, what does that mean when you have the artist side and you're fighting to become an artist, but then on the writer side you have this number one? How does that sort of balance in getting the number one as a writer, but then how does that sort of help your artist career?
It's such a huge honor, man. Anytime you have an artist who believes enough in a song you write, like in this, whether you're a songwriter and purely a songwriter, or if you're an artist writer, like me, I think it's always an honor, and it's always like a sign of credibility when someone takes a leap of faith on a song you've written. So like for Randy to hear that song first, like when we wrote that song, I knew it wasn't something that I, wanted to put out. It just didn't feel like something I would release. It had like this different vibe to it that was really cool, and we loved it. But our first thought was like, man, this sounds like something Randy Houser would absolutely crush. And by some miracle, our team got it to him, and he heard it. And to take a leap of faith on like 3 young writers who had not had a hit yet, and put that out on the radio was massive. And so, it was a big confidence boost as a songwriter, and definitely gives you credibility in that world, but also as an artist, because, everybody's always looking, everybody's always kind of watching to see, who's having success and who's, kind of finding their groove. And to me, that was like, okay, that gave us the credibility we need to go write with like, some hit songwriters and feel like we belong in that room, So it was more for me, than anything else. But, on the artist side too, it was really cool because when you have these relationships with other artists, when, they know you can write songs and that you've had success that way, it kind of like puts you in that club of like, okay, like this guy's an artist writer. And I kind of like look at around me at artists who have done that well, like, Thomas Rhett and FGL and, Sam Hunt. Like there's so many artist writers in this town that don't necessarily always write just for themselves. And when you're writing hundreds of songs, it's like impossible to release every one of those songs. And sometimes they just kind of have a voice of their own and find their own home. And that's what happened when we went, and the Hootie song and so many others. And it's been really cool, man, to kind of see that happen, because I never really planned for that to happen,
And you talk about the Hootie and the Blowfish song. Now, I read that they were maybe one of your first concerts around the age of 7 that you went to see. And so what is that experience like, and having that memory and then being able to have a song that they cut?
Oh man, just stupid full circle. Like, can't even like make a story up like that. Like it sounds like, it's like a movie. It really is. My mom took me to see Hootie and the Blowfish in Greenville when I was just a kid. And I remember it so specifically, the concert. And so to think that years later you'd be in a writing room with that band, like writing, for their album, it's just crazy to think that. But when it happened, like I was driving into town. It was very last minute. Like my publisher called me and they're like, hey, Hootie and the Blowfish is in town today and they want to write with you. And I was like, at first kind of thought it was maybe a joke, because number one, they hadn't put any music out in years. Number two, I didn't know they were going to be putting out a country record. And number three, why do they want to write with me? And so it was mind blowing, but I had like 30 minutes to get there, and I came in with this little idea and had some great co-writers with me that like kind of helped form it into something. And it was something that they liked and put out in their record. And it was the first song they'd put out in like 15 years. So it was like, it was insane, man. And they were such nice guys. Like, it's always great. They always tell you not to meet your heroes because you might be disappointed. So when you meet them and they're even nicer than you could have ever imagined, it's like it's such an awesome thing,
That's awesome. And when it comes to your music, let's talk about that journey a bit. So March of 2015, you release On Your Lips, an EP. And then there was about 6 or 7 singles coming into 2019. And now 2019, you released the first single that would be off of your album that you released this year. And so that single that you released, was that leading up to the album? Was it already sort of ready to go at that point? Or was that a single and then the album kind of formed in 2020 as you had the time to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always had in the back of my mind, like, I really want to put out a full length album. And for a while there, everything was so singles focused. It was just like get out music as fast as you can, like, single, single, single. And so we were just kind of firing them out. But in the back of my head, like I always had this dream to put out a full length album. Just growing up as a lover of songs, a lover of music, like I know that like that's to me, like the pinnacle for an artist, like to be able to put out a full length album and to have, a message and something that you want to say with that music. So I was always like excited and wanted to do it, but also very leery because like I wanted it to make sense. Like when it came out, I didn't want it to just be a bunch of songs,
Yeah.
So to me, I was always kind of writing for that album and thinking about songs that made sense for the album. And I think it really came together in 2020. Like I think during lockdown, like I kind of got time to like sit down with these past couple years of work and like start thinking about putting together this body of work. And to me, it was like, man, what do I want to say? And for me, it's like, I wanted to just tell people a little bit about me, like my life. And, my family is such a huge part of my life. Like I wanted them to see that window into my world a little bit. And I started, listening to a couple of these songs we've written. And it was like, man, like this is me. Like these songs are me. Like if you organize them in a certain way, like it's autobiographical. It's like in order, of how the sequence of my life has happened. So we ended up writing a few other songs to kind of like complete that whole body of work in 2020. And it was crazy, man, how it came together. I would say, in 2019, we put out Try Saying Goodbye. I didn't intentionally, put that out thinking like this is going to be part of the record. But when we were kind of going through the record, there was like this missing gap in there. It was like, we kind of talk about, if you start on song one, it's like kind of me meeting my wife and like our relationship building and developing. And then we get into like the hard part, and it's like, I didn't want to skip that. I didn't want people to just think that like, hey, it's just all been fun and games, because it definitely hasn't. I mean, there's been hard moments. And Try Saying Goodbye was like that song, man. It was kind of the song that sparked, the whole feel for how I wanted these songs to be, which was just honest, just very open and honest. And that's what fans had loved about Try Saying Goodbye. Like it was just an honest song about, relationships and how they can just be hard sometimes. And so I wanted to have that in there, and I wanted the other songs, even the happy ones, even the up-tempo ones, to have that same honesty. And yeah, man, it came together really great. I mean, I'm so proud of that record, and I'm just proud to have something you can listen to from top down that tells an honest story. I think as an artist, like that's what you hope for.
And how did it come together? Because Jason Gant is the only producer that appears twice. Every song is basically produced by someone different. Now, how did that all work out?
Yeah, a lot of that was doing it during COVID. I mean, we were kind of in lockdown, and I wanted to keep the charm of a lot of these original demos, because, when we go in and write songs, we'll do little, day of work tapes and demos. And so many of these songs, like I'm thinking back to like, Always Gonna Be You and Better Man, and even, Till It Changes Your Mind. Like those songs were taken from the demos that we had written that day. Most of those songs on that record, I sang the same day that we wrote them. Like it was very impulsive and like and it had like this charm to it that I didn't want to lose, like it felt raw. So we really just ended up taking those demos and adding elements to them to make them feel like a record and to make them, quality. And so it was really cool. I don't think we would have done it any different, even if we weren't in lockdown, but it ended up being that way, to where there was multiple producers and, so many great songwriters on that record and multiple musicians. And it really did work out, though, man. It's not the conventional way to do a record, but it was fun.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was any anxiety tied to that, because your vocals maybe are a bit more raw than they normally would be, going into a studio and taking as many takes as you want to sort of get it perfect. So what was that like for you in releasing that?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted that album to be vulnerable, man. I wanted it to be vulnerable, in the songwriting and the lyrics and in the performances even. And I mean, I was, looking back, there was a couple little things that, yeah, if you would have had 100 takes in the studio, you probably wouldn't have left that in there. But it was like, you know what? Like that's what I'm doing. Like that's what I want. I want that to feel real. And I mean, I think Better Man, the last song on the record, is like probably one of my favorites because it's so raw. Like you can hear, little breaks in my voice, or you can hear, like certain little things with the instrumentation. And to me, like I love that as a song lover, as someone who grew up just loving good music. I always have appreciated that. And I don't think everything always has to be absolutely perfect. Sometimes I think when you make things so perfect, it kind of takes the honesty out of it.
Right. And how weird of a feeling is it arriving in town back in like around 2011, 2012? You have had some EPs, but this is really considered your debut album. And so how weird is that to have this like long journey and be at this point in your career and have it be considered your debut?
Man, it took longer than I would ever have thought to get a full length record out there. But I just kind of attribute it to like I guess I had more living to do, to be able to fill in the blanks for that album, and that's okay. I mean, to me, it's I think that everybody has their own path. Mine's been different than I would have ever foreseen, and but at the same time rewarding, and I wouldn't change a bit of it, the good and the bad. So it's I'm glad that we finally got to it, man, and that the songs were there, and that people are loving it, because that's that's what we came to town to do.
That's awesome. And I wanted to ask you about your faith. It's maybe not always easy to sort of project that because of what comes along with it and what fans might take from it. And so I wanted to ask you just how important your faith is and living that freely.
Oh man, I mean, to me, that was really my whole purpose of doing this. I mean, I thought, going into any other career, in any career, kind of the way I was raised, if you're going to be there, you need to shine a light. And that's kind of how I try to approach, every day, every show that we're playing. If you're just kind to people and you shine that light, man, it doesn't matter if it's the bouncer, if it's the, person who's the gate attendant, or if it's, Jason Aldean or Blake Shelton when you're opening shows for them. If you can show that same love and pass it on, I mean, I think that's not only being a good Christian, just being a good person, and to me, that's something I really try to do. And my faith has helped me with that tremendously. And looking at this more, not only as a career, but as a witness field, as something bigger. And I think it makes you appreciate what you do a lot more when you look at it with that perspective. And to think too, that you're always, when you're at this stage and you're in this career, you're always, kind of under a scope, and you have to, if you can be a positive role model, be a good influence for people, I think that's something that's really needed in this day and age. And I hope that, it has a positive impact on people. But I've never been, one to really be afraid, to say that. And yeah, there are times where maybe, that could, offend somebody, or I hope it doesn't. But I also think people appreciate honesty, and they appreciate passion. And to me, that's what I really try to, put off, the vibe I try to put off. And it's real. I mean, my faith has got me through so many tough situations and dark moments that I just wouldn't have been able to make it through without.
And there's a Bible, I believe, that your grandma got you at some point along your journey. How important is that item for you?
The most important, man. That's one of those items that will be in my safe, forever, and passed down for generations. I love to go through there and see her notes, and kind of what she was, scriptures that she was loving, and thoughts and prayers that she was having on a daily. And, my grandma was just one of the sweetest ladies. Pop's wife. It was Pop's wife. And she passed when I was, when I was 11 or 12. And it's just always left a huge mark on my heart, and how I try to live my life. She was just so sweet, so kind to everybody, and it didn't matter. And I just think that's the ultimate message. I mean, when you break it down, it's pretty simple. Just love each other. I mean, that's it, and to me, like, if you can just take that and apply it to your everyday life, I think that's the most important thing.
That's awesome. And it seems to me that at this point in your life that you are able to sort of live your best life. You have your wife, you have your daughter, you have your music, and it seems like things are really on a great path for you.
Oh man, it's I'm absolutely blessed, and wouldn't change a thing in this world. I mean, to me, like we talked about, having that time to kind of reconnect with family has been huge for me. And you go so hard, when you're chasing whatever dream it is. And if you can take a minute to just take a breath and realize the most important things in life, like that, to me has been huge. And it's right now I feel like we're in a sweet spot to where it's like I'm doing what I love, putting out music that I love, and surrounded by the people I love.
Thank you once again so much for listening, and thank you to John for stopping by and sharing his story. Be sure to check out his new album, Always Gonna Be, wherever you stream your music. Please also be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe to us wherever you are listening. Leave us a review, a rating, tell your friends, your family, your neighbors to come on over and have a listen. And more importantly, join us each and every week for new and exciting episodes with your favorite country artists. Thank you so much once again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Country Music Made Me.